We're going to go ahead and get started with class if you want to find a seat. As was mentioned a couple times, we've got Randy Shaw from Mountain States Children's Home with us and his wife with us this morning. They're actually going to be, Gary and Zach and I are headed up to Bismarck for a lectureship tomorrow, and they're going to be up there as well, and so we've had a chance to meet them before, but they're going to be sharing some of what's going on at Mountain States. We've just this year started supporting that with the change cans. If you haven't gotten those turned in, those are in my office. If you want to hand me that, and I'll take those, and then they'll take them with them. But if you forgot yours and you still have one, we'll figure out something for that. But with all of that being said, we're going to get kind of some info on what they do and things. And so I'm going to pray, and then we'll turn it over to Randy for our class. Lisa. Okay. Yep, so if you forgot yours, get with Lisa, and we'll take care of that. So let's pray. Father, we thank you so much for today. We thank you for your love for us. We thank you for the opportunities that you provide us to have jobs, to have incomes, and to be able to use those resources, not just for ourselves, but for others that are in need. And we pray that as we hear about some things from Mountain States, that you would continue to bless the work that's going on there. Be with Randy as he speaks to us, and we just pray that your work would continue to be done all across this world and in this area in all kinds of ways. Father, we thank you for your love for us and for your Son. It's in his name that we pray. Amen.
Okay. Am I on? Okay. Good morning, everyone. It is great to be here. I want to thank the elders and Clint for allowing me to come and share some things about the Children's Home, and we're excited that you are part of what we do and beginning to some support to the Children's Home, and that means an awful lot. I also heard that your youth group is going to come up next summer, and it's be next summer, and we look forward to that and to have you here probably for about a week or so, I think is what it's up there. And we have a number of different youth groups that come through and help us out, which really helps our ministry in working with the kids, and we love the fact that our youth get to visit with other youth that are members of the church, and it's just a great thing for them to experience. So, my wife, I got to be careful about that. When she was in high school, she came up here through Mayfair and did a campaign for Christ. So there's some connections in that sense, and also I grew up in eastern Montana, a little town called Fairview, over by Fairview, Sidney, Montana. That's where I grew up. So, I feel like I'm coming home when I come to the north anyway. So, what I'm going to be sharing with today in regards to just kind of the nuts and bolts about the Children's Home and what we do and how we do it. And a lot of people don't quite understand about children's homes, and or at least how we care for kids that come into our care. So I'm going to turn to Hebrews chapter 12, and I'm going to come back to that, and I'm going to share a story. Like I said, I grew up in eastern Montana. My mom was a full-blood German. My dad was a full-blood Norwegian. And Dad was a mechanic, a machinist, and a welder, and my brother and I grew up with all of the learning that skill, and we I still continue to work a lot on my own cars and things, and just thankful for that. My mom fit the stereotype of German. I mean, very industrious, hardworking. I mean, at least that's where it was when I grew up, and. Mom would even took me out 11 years of age hoeing sugar beets. I mean, it was just a matter of, we kept us boys busy, my brother and I, all the time. And I think we stayed out of trouble because of what she would do in regards to keeping us busy all the time. And Mom was the main disciplinarian. I mean, in regards to the daily activities and things, Dad was at work. But whenever Mom couldn't handle us two boys, whatever, Dad would come in, and Dad had a look to kill. You realize that? I mean, you realize that if Dad was called in, you knew you had gone too far. How many have had a dad like that? I mean, you knew that, boy, if Mom couldn't handle you, just wait till Dad comes home. I mean, it was amazing how I could straighten up, and I did what I was supposed to, and I changed my attitude and do what I was supposed to do. So And where I'm going with this in regards to talking about discipline, in regards to how important it is for us to go through discipline. And chapter 12 talks about discipline. But I want to, I remember as a child, I would love to wrestle, and get one on my older brother. I would get him in a scissor lock and hold him. And, it was always neat to get your older brother, it was 3.5 years older, to where he had to say uncle. And I was always picking a fight with my older brother. And Mom would always say, don't wrestle in the house. You're going to break something. Well, we had a little dog, that Chihuahua Rat Terrier, about that high. And his name was Punky. And Mom had a leather strap on the back of her bedroom door ready for us to get a spanking anytime. I don't know how many of us had spankings when growing up. I mean, yeah, most of us all have experienced that. And, it was just there ready all the time. And I think it come along. Well, Punky didn't like us to get a spanking. And so, when Mom would be spanking us, Punky would be down there and grabbing the belt and keeping her from spanking us. It was just, and one time, I was 10, 11, time for a spanking. And, she went into the bedroom to get the belt, and the belt was gone. It was all, and she said, Randy, where's that belt? And I said, I don't know, Mom. I don't, now I'm in trouble already for what I did. Now I'm troubled because she thinks I hid the belt from her, and she looked all over the house trying to find her belt, and she looked underneath the bed. There was underneath the bed, that leather strap was just chewed to pieces. Punky just took care of that belt, and I began to understand that phrase, dogs are a man's best friend. I never had any more spankings after that. It was great. Punky and I were buds, definitely. And I make light of all of that. And there's a lot of different ways to discipline your children. Spanking is one of them, but there's teaching and training and mentoring, and there's so much more to it than, when you really look at how you train up a child. But I remember going to my mom, and I was 25, and I said, Mom, thank you for raising me the way you did. And I remember we were just kind of looking on the floor and the ground for a little bit, and then she looked up at me and she says, Randy, that was the nicest compliment you could have ever given me. And I think that we as parents, we're responsible parents, good parents, we want our children to be raised to where they make good choices in life and they take responsibility. And Mom and Dad did that. And for both my brother and I, we're very thankful for her. And like I said, it was far more than just the spankings. I think there was so much more that went into in regards to different character traits that we both have, and it's meaningful. Let's turn to chapter 12 in Hebrews. And it deals with, in the beginning, first 3 verses talks about, it kind of, the picture is it kind of surrounded by this big amphitheater or surrounded by a cloud of witnesses in regards to, they're encouraging us on to run the race. And, if you go back to in Hebrews 12, or chapter 11 was referred to in the sermon today, but we're surrounded by the heroes of the faith in the past. You go back and look at Abel and Abraham and Enoch and Isaac and Joseph and Moses, and you get, the picture in regards to what chapter 11 is all about. But it's not so much that their voices are telling us to do right or hang in there, but it's their lives are a testimony to us to encourage us as we go through hardships and difficulties in life. And so I'll read that part of it here. It says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinful men, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. And then I'm going to read verses 4 through 11. And I would like, I don't know, and a lot of times in an auditorium class, there's not much interaction. But I want to go over this, read this next few verses, and then think about how it applies to you. And it talks about discipline. So verse 4 says, "In your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. And you have forgotten that word of encouragement that addresses you as sons. My sons, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when he rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines those he loves, and he punishes everyone he accepts as a son. Endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as sons. For what son is not disciplined by his father? And if you are not disciplined, and everyone undergoes discipline, then you are illegitimate children and not true sons. Moreover, we have all had human fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them for it. How much more should we submit to the Father of our spirits and live? Our fathers disciplined us for a little while as they thought best, but God disciplines us for our good, that we may share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it." What are some things that you can personally apply to this passage? We all grew up. We all had parents. Any of this had any significance to you? I'll start off. Who does God love?
Everyone.
He loves me.
He loves you. He loves everybody. But in this passage, what does it say?
Those he considers sons, he disciplines.
Yes. Yeah. And it says here, my sons, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when he rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines those he loves. And I think our children, when we raise up, we discipline because we love them, because we want them to make good choices, don't they? And God does that too, even though it says talked about enduring hardships, but there's a lot of things that we can learn from that. Yes.
Just pointing out, or rather it speaks to me to help me understand how important it is that we receive the discipline so that we become holy, as God is holy. And I know that it takes discipline for certain situations where we have to be corrected so that it becomes something in which we are much more holy and righteous in our behavior. And that's important because all of that is to the glory of God. God
Amen.
wants us to be a righteous, holy people in this world for his glory.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And that verse 11, it gets into that in regards to peace and righteousness, a child will receive by being disciplined. What does it say in regards to if you're not disciplined, what are you? You're illegitimate. What does illegitimate mean?
Means you're not really a son. They don't consider you as a son.
You're not considered as a son, I also say you don't belong. You don't belong. And I remember growing up, I knew I belonged. My mom and my dad's eyes were on me all the time. I mean, other people were watching me, but my mom and dad were, and I knew I belonged to them. And that's important because it gives security. It's the same thing in regards to we know because God disciplines us, we belong. We are his children. And there's security along with that. Yes?
And what I love about God is that even when our terrestrial parents are not there, God is with you all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
That is important.
That's important. It really is. It holds us accountable, doesn't it? Yes. Yes.
I was going to say, I did a lot of studying on discipline and punishment. They're two separate different things.
They are.
Yeah. Discipline is, teaching right and explaining to them and sitting down and helping them to understand.
Amen.
Punishment is, the physical form of, trying to wake them up and show them that they've done wrong.
Right, and I appreciate you pointing that out, and that's what I kind of explained, that discipline is so much broader than just punishment. I mean, it's the training, the mentoring, and all of what you just said, how important that is, yes. How many of us want to be disciplined? Some hands gotta go up slowly, I have to think about that, right? Yeah, and it's kind of like, well, then if I ask the question, how many of us know we need discipline? Oh, okay, all of our hands will go up, yeah, we need it. Boy, I don't want it, because it can be painful, it's hard, you know, is it what this verse talks about? Is it easier to discipline your children or not discipline them?
Discipline, because they are rebellious if you don't discipline them. It's easy to harder for time.
It's easier in the short term to not discipline, but in the long term,
Yes.
it's what you sow.
That's kind of a trick question in regards to, well, yeah, yes, and you know, if you don't discipline them, you're going to have a harder time with them. But if you discipline them earlier, you're going to have less of a difficulty when, you know, hopefully that's where we train them to go in the right direction. Well, I maybe ever had the parents say, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. You know? Yeah, sure. No, but I think if you understand where the parent is coming from, it's hard to inflict some sort of hardship on your child, you know, but you know they need it to turn them to go in the right way, you know, how important it is. And I love this passage, you know, when it goes to the verse 11 where it says, you know, and this is why I'm talking about this, because in the children's home, right now we're getting 4 to 6 calls a day of people calling in wanting help with their children. And a lot of the times the children are growing up in a home situation, an environment situation such that they are not being disciplined. There is no one training them, you know, because there's so much chaos that's going on. But when I see when they come into the children's home, I love this. This is later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. You know, how important you can see when they come into the structure, there's a peace that starts coming about because there's structure, there's security. And, you know, it brings about a peace within their lives because of they're being trained to make good decisions. So I want to open it up with that passage just to get you thinking in regards to today, the number of children that we're getting calls for, and, you know, it's just overwhelming. I mean, in regards to, and many of them are beyond the scope of what we can do in regards to how we care for kids. I was the executive director with the Children's Home for nearly 30 years, and I stepped down a couple years ago. This is Nick and Abby, and Nick Mears, and it's Nick and Abby. But he's the new executive director. He's been there for 2 years. My wife and I, she headed up our school. We had an on-ground school where we had the children to go into the school for a year, and I'll show some pictures about that. But anyway, I just wanted to point out Nick Mears is the executive director there. So we're located in Longmont, Colorado. We're just north of Denver. There are about 35 Brotherhood Children's Homes in the nation that are associated with Churches of Christ. We're the, you know, as what Dave mentioned, that we're probably most northern. We're probably more northwestern. There's nothing north of us as far as from Colorado, as far as Brotherhood Children's Homes, or even west, even out to California, as far as residential programs. We want to be a referral source to the church. We want church just to know what do we do so that we can be an extension and a resource for you if you know of any children who need help. This is kind of a diagram in regards to, if I go over here on the right, we're here in Colorado. We have kind of networked more to the north and northwest in regards to the churches. When I became the director, I thought, well, I'll go south to get support because that's where most of the Churches of Christ are. And but there's one in Kansas, 3 in Oklahoma, 3 in New Mexico, 9 in Texas, and the rest of them are across the Bible Belt. So, but when I went down south, it was kind of like, well, we're already supporting 3 or 4 children's homes, so it kind of forced me to go more to the north and network with churches, and it creates an interesting aspect because churches are few and far between. You know, it's a lot of distance there, but God has blessed us in so many ways in regards to what we're doing, and I think you'll find out there. They all come from troubled family situations. Things are not going well. I mean, that makes sense in regards to why are children being placed at a children's home? Well, there's divorce or broken homes, abandonment, neglect, abuse. The most common scenario is a single mom calling up, "Can you save my child? I don't know what to do." They've managed up until about 10 or 11 when the children turn, there's adolescence comes in, their brain changes from concrete thinking to abstract thinking. Where concrete they would obey because they were supposed to, but now when they turn 13, 14, why do I have to follow you? Why can't I run with my friends? They're already angry at their father or mother or whatever, or both of them, because of the lack of structure that they're providing. And it's very easy for them to start drifting into the negative peer group. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But we only take private placement. We don't take any state place kids because we'd have to take state dollars and we'd have to sign a contract to do things that we don't agree with because of our Christian standards. So that's why we have just gone private placement. Yes.
Years ago, I don't think they're in operation anymore, but the Cornhusk Christian Children's Home,
Yes. Uh-huh.
they were, I think, if I understand it correctly, is that they were disbanded because they used corporal punishment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I understand, and I think there may have been some other issues too, but yeah. So we have just stayed away from state place kids in regards to just it frees us up more in regards to our religious concerns in regards to church and all of that. Boulder County will not place with us. They didn't. They stopped a long time ago because we take them to church. They didn't want them to go to church. That's what's happening. No, church is the backbone of what we do. You take a look at all of them are wounded. They're angry because they have the dysfunction in their family. How many of us like structure? How many? We'd like to have that security, and when there's not that security of mom and dad, then their anger, they feel cheated, a lot of trauma issues. Just the mere fact of being placed at a children's home is traumatic for a child. You can imagine them coming in. And trust issues, all kinds of trust issues. One of the things that a few years ago, we worked with a consultant to find out, okay, what makes us stand out? What makes us different than other children's homes? And, we kept talking about, the different things we do, and the person we're working with, he says, well, you guys just keep saying you provide a deeper level of care. And so, sometimes you go along, you don't even realize what you're saying, but he pointed that out, and he says, yeah, we do. So we looked at, Luke 2:52, where it says, Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. And we thought, that's what we do. That's what makes us different. You can take a look at secular agencies. They don't have Christ in there, the spirituality of part of that. A lot of them don't have the educational component, as they'll talk about. But, and also the counseling. So what we've focused in on, educational, physical, spiritual, and the social development for the children, covering those four areas, because that's how Jesus grew in that area. So you take a look at wisdom. What we started an on-ground school. I asked my wife to start this on-ground school. She was halfway through her master's in going into working on our master's in working with gifted children, and I asked her, can you start a school in regards to helping these kids get caught up? And they're coming from, some of them have been, expelled from school, or they're because of the issues that they get involved with. And she graciously accepted that, and God had, she just gave me a face like, yeah, really. You were gracious about that. But it was just going in a different direction than what she was thinking. I'm going into the gifted, and now I'm working with kids that are so far behind and trying to get caught up. But she did a great job in regards to starting it because of the spiritual aspect, because we were able to teach God, Christ, in all the things that we were doing. Yes?
Once the kids are caught up, do they go to a public school or do they stay there?
They do. They go on to the public school or the charter school, what we have used in the past, to where it's a little bit more structured. A charter school it's usually started by Christian people, usually with higher standards of conduct and stuff, so they mainstream in there. And so the school is in front of this building here. This is my wife here in regards to right there. So inside the school building, we built this in in '08 rather. We'd send them to the public school. When they come in, and within 2 days, they were like magnets to other kids who were not doing well, because that's what they were used to. And they would be cutting classes and goofing around, and then they were gone for 6 hours, and they'd come back. How you doing in school? I'm doing fine. Okay, well, fine. But then when the grades came, there were D's and F's. Wait a minute, you said you were doing fine. And, well, I just didn't do my homework. Well, so that's why we knew we needed to start an on-ground school to cut out that negative peer group, because that's what they knew, and they were being sucked into a lot of the negative things, because there's a lot of other kids who are doing that in the public schools. And I'm not knocking public schools, but it's just the reality of what it is. Yes?
I have a question, and hopefully your wife can help with this question. Was there much of a difference in educating troubled youths versus or youths coming from this background versus those that are with special needs?
You want to answer that? Or?
As in gifted or needing special, like learning disabilities and that sort of thing?
Yeah, was there much of a shift in how you had to adapt your training to the
Well,
application?
It was amazing how much just the structure and the accountability and the consistency, that helps everybody. And almost all of our kids come in ADHD and have other diagnoses, but those are the things that help them and the most.
I'll go to the next one here. I'll just maybe address some of what you're saying here. This is the inside the classroom. You know, again, it comes into a safe environment and the structure that we have. Accountability, the teachers give the assignments that goes back to the house parents. The house parents have to sign off on it, and then it goes right back to the teachers. And there's a level system they're graded on in regards to they doing their homework or not, and there's consequences or privileges based upon that. Here maybe goes to where you're talking about here. We did a 12-year study. Over 12 years of all the kids that we came in, we did a pre-test and a post-test. And after 1 year, and the average improvement was 3.7 grade levels in academic achievement, to where, again, a lot of the things that you were talking about were addressed based upon the accountability and the structure and cutting out all of the other stimulus, the negative stimulus. But this was the average of all the students that came through the children's home. The average is, and it's still running that way, but it's 3.7 grade levels in academic achievement. Then we would mainstream back into the public school at a different level, to where when they went back into public school, they didn't go to the negative peer group, because they were on a different level, because they felt confident that they could achieve. And that's what the whole goal of the school is, to get them caught up to where they felt that success. And I had kids come up to me and say, Randy, I have an A. I've never had an A before. I mean, you could just see the joy, you know, in that accomplishment in regards to, you know, that they did it. But, you know, again, there's part of that accountability that goes along with the discipline and the structure there. We did do, I'm going to maybe address back, we did work with the public school with some of the kids in regards to that, the IEPs and stuff, that trying to address some of the special needs areas also, you know, there. National graduation rate for high school is 82%. Children in the Colorado foster care system, 24% graduate from high school. Of all the kids that we've had in the children's home, we've had 100% graduate with an accredited high school diploma. You know, it's just a matter of the support and that accountability in regards to giving them that foundation is so important and needed. So that's as far as the wisdom of the educational part of it. Stature. These are some pictures of the home, the different houses that, the home started in 1960, so we've been in existence for 64 years. These are some houses built in the 60s and 70s. We hire husband and wife teams. They're the members of the church. We feel like that's very important in regards to the structure and getting the same teaching. This was the first house that was built in '63. It's about 8 years ago. We built this house here, and we built it from kind of like a habitat house. The more we got involved with the community, when I moved there in '92, people would say, "Well, we know you're out there, but we don't know anything about you." The more we got into the community and the more we networked with the community, the more they wanted to get involved. And this house here was built like a habitat house. It wasn't a habitat house, but we had a lot of habitat volunteers coming out and helping us build it. And actually, a Christian church stepped up and said, "We want to help you build it." They donated $500,000 toward it, $250,000 cash, $250,000 through their volunteers. It was a church of about 2,500, and they had their volunteer members come out and build it. But before, let me go back here. Before we closed it up, we had on the inside of the walls, we had the kids go out and write scriptures and prayers to all the kids that would be going through that house. And they spent 2.5 hours just going through, it's just all marked up all over inside of the house. And it was just cool to watch them. And we didn't tell them what to write. They wrote it, yes.
How many students are in the house?
There's 6 placed kids in a house, and then house parents, we got a couple house parents that have 3 of their own, so that we could have up to 9 placed children. And so 8 or 6 placed, but it could go up to 9 in a house. So we feel like that's enough. When I got into child care back in '92, we'd go up to like a 12 or 14, and that's a lot of kids to really provide the quality care. You're starting to warehouse them more, we felt like. So, but one of the girls wrote here, when you walk in the front door and the step on the floor, she wrote, she said, "The first step is the hardest." You can only imagine going into the children's home, that first step was the hardest. And she was later baptized, and she went on back home again. And that's just a good lesson for all of us. Becoming a Christian is the first step, sometimes is the hardest. But after you get beyond that, so good lesson. Yes?
You mentioned the word hire. So you hire your parents. What, are they paid or are they volunteers?
They're paid, yes. We hire husband and wife teams.
So how much is, if someone gives, let's just say, $1 bill for the work, is there a breakdown of how much is how much it is to employ versus how much goes to help the child? Does that make sense?
As far as in the budget wise,
Yeah.
we could probably get that for you. I don't have that.
Well, you don't need to get it for me. I thought maybe you had it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could break that down in regards to child. We do break it down on our audit in regards to child care services, what go for child care.
But there's always a growing need.
Yes, yeah. Anyway, that was how, then we had CrossFit trainers that come out. They loved what we did. They set up a CrossFit training program. They went out, they bought, if I go to the next one, they bought all kinds, about $50,000 worth of equipment back here because they loved what they were doing. They were not members of the church, but they wanted to help out. And the more we got in the community, the more people wanted to help because they really believed in what we were doing. There we go. Anyway, that's just that there in the gym. I'm going back too far. Let me go back here. Oops. Anyway, Dustin is our director of professional services. He's right there. You'll probably see a picture of him later, but he became certified, and they go through CrossFit exercises and stuff like that, and it pushes them. Exercise is hard. You reach a goal, but then he makes a spiritual application, helping the kids to go back through and realize, here's a hardship. What can you learn from it? But applying it to a spiritual application. He's really good at doing things like that. Here, this is the inside of our gym. All right, there we go. And then growing in favor with God. We're under the eldership of the Longmont Church of Christ. we feel like, again, that's the backbone of what we do, and bringing Christ into their lives. We have a medical clinic. We're a congregation of about pushing 300, have a Spanish ministry in that. So, but they've been overseeing the home since '74. So let me go on here. This is youth activities. When your youth group comes, more than likely they'll probably have some campfires, and they'll have some devotionals and singing with our kids. This is a picture of our kids being with another youth group. Definitely the spiritual aspect of it, involving our kids into getting involved. This is inside the gym. This is a picture of a youth group that comes out, and they really help us out doing just a lot of things, lawn maintenance, things along that line. Yes, Austin.
Did you mention, are any of those kids orphaned, or are they all troubled?
You know, I've been in child care for 42 years, and I could probably, I mean, if you take a look at defined orphan as both parents deceased, probably 5, maybe 6. Most all come from broken homes. Yeah, they're orphaned in a different sense. You know, you take a look at, a lot of times I ask us, what do you think is more difficult, to have your parents deceased or to have your parents alive and your parents not want you? You know, we tend to do more on the sense of that we have parents that don't really want to be involved with their kids. Then, you know, maybe both, but, you know, definitely probably one is not involved. And, you know, it's the status you take and look at is that on the child can grow up, but if you don't have a parent, they're orphaned. I mean, they're not being trained. You know, that's so. I have another sermon about that one in regards to, that's a broader meaning in regards to what orphan than what we typically think, from Vine's Expository Dictionary. Baptisms, we are, before COVID hit us hard. We were somewhere 2/3 to 3/4 of our kids are baptized. COVID come, church online, not being able to visit in person, couldn't go to youth activities. We couldn't even go to Walmart. The health department said, we really don't want you to go into any area where there's a lot of people. So, I mean, it was hard on we lost house parents. The kids, we just were not making the improvements spiritually as what we typically had. House parents were so isolated that, we had 4 leave in 1 year because it was so isolating until we could get back to church. And when we started getting back to church, it was that was so, filling, and helping. So we're glad we're beyond that. We just had one of the boys baptized here 2 weeks ago. In Favor with Man, this Dustin. One of the things that the children come into our care, and we work hard trying to get them back home if we can. And what we start off with is individual counseling on a weekly basis. The kids all receive counseling on a weekly basis. We do group counseling. Also, here's another one, group counseling in regards to dealing with more group issues and helping them through issues because they have anger. They're all angry. And yes?
How many girls do you have?
We do half and halves. So we have 4 cottages, then there's 2 boys' cottages, 2 girls' cottages. Yes. But they're separate, because we don't house them in the same house. Yes. Yes.
Can you accommodate all ages?
From most, we get so many referrals. We rarely get kids referred to as under 10. I mean, most all of them are just right when they hit puberty. I mean, that's when the age we get the most referrals. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, you said that you had 100% graduation rate. Excellent. But you also said that kids go back home. Do you count that in your ratings once they go back home? Do they move up?
That's a good point. If they stay in our care, we work at trying to get them back home. It's usually, we start off saying we'll look at a year and a half placement to get them back home. We found before is that you place them while you're here till senior or until you graduate. That puts a wall between us and the kid. And so if we say we're going to work at trying to get you back home, then somewhere down the line, a lot of times we find out there's no good home to go back to, but we've helped them to come to that decision and understanding. So the ones that tend to stay, longer term, we've had 100% that graduate. We don't follow, all the ones that go back home in regards to, they definitely improve. Janice probably keeps up with them in Facebook, so, but, they definitely do go back and do better than what they were, so, but we don't, that makes sense. We definitely want to provide that background and groundwork for them to succeed. We do family counseling or parent counseling. And a lot of times what we find is it's a single mom going through a crisis, don't have the parenting skills, trying to be a buddy versus being the parent, because they may have lost their husband, now they're afraid they're going to lose their kid. And we try to strengthen them to where they become a more effective parent to go back home. Here's something here, what we wanted to find out. Are we doing any good in regards to the counseling? So we come up with this, it's an assessment we have the kids to fill out, and it measures 16 areas of therapeutic concern when they come in. So it's school problems, family problems, depression, self-esteem, personal stress, confused thinking, guilt, father problems, aggression, disturbed thinking, mother problems, friend problems, memory loss, drug use, alcohol use, suicide. It measures, these are areas that we need to focus in on when they come into our care. After you take a look at, hope I'm going to this one side so you understand, but at the time of placement, you take a look at, and then in 1 year from that, 48% have 10 to 16 areas of therapeutic concern at the time when they come into our care. After a year, that green, none of them have 10 to 16 areas of therapeutic concern. At the time of placement, there's 47% have 5 to 9 areas of therapeutic concern. And you can see that red after a year drops down to 17% have 5 to 9 areas of therapeutic concern. At the time of placement, back over here, 0 to 4 areas of therapeutic concern, 5% have that 0 to 4 areas of therapeutic concern. But after a year, you take a look at how big that the blue has grown to where it's 82% have 0 to 4 areas of therapeutic concern. So we know we're addressing the issues that the kids are having when they come into our care. All right, it's a church involvement. Pratt Management Company built that office building for us. Kind of one of those things, they said, we want to build you an office. And we designed an office for 4,500 square feet, and they looked at it and they said, well, we don't build anything that small. Can you make it bigger? Thank you, Lord. Now I wish I would have made it bigger, but God has just blessed us that way. Yes.
So one question I have is also, how do your residents actually feel about participation in the program? Do you find that when they first come that the buy-in's not quite there? Are they on board right away?
Yes, to all of it. We require that they have some desire to come into the program. If they're going to just come in and blow out, we're not a lockup, we're a family model, so they have to have some buy-in to it, and then we do a lot of screening in regards to, in the interview process. So we don't have too much of a problem with that. Most of the time the kids have some have a lot of interest in it, and others are we have to have some, but we found that works. This is, we have a business before hours, getting the community out. This is where we have about 90 people that come out, and we provide a breakfast. They come out and they meet the kids, they meet the, get to go around to the home. One of the questions I have a lot of people ask when can we see one of the houses? I know exactly what they're thinking, because they're thinking if it's going to be like an orphanages back in the 20s and 30s. And when they go over and see the kids, and the kids are showing them rooms, whatever, they said, the kids are just showing our kid their rooms there. And it just changes their whole outlook in regards to what we do for helping kids. We started a thrift store. The more we got into the community, the more people wanted to donate more stuff. We started having an auction. It went 9 hours, and people were spent out. So I approached the board and I said, we need to start a thrift store. And the board, you have to realize, a bunch of guys, we don't go to a thrift store. Why do we want to start a thrift store? And it just, it was kind of shot down. So we went to 2 days of auctions. Habitat was coming out, buying 2 to 3 truckloads of stuff that was being donated, taken to their store and selling it. Then we were going to 3 days of auctions. They're like farm auctions is what they were, just because we had to figure out how to turn these items into cash. And they, one of the board members said, we need to start a thrift store. I said, yeah, I think we need to, So there still was a resistance. Why do we want to start a thrift store? Anyway, I'll tell inside of a thrift store. Yes? Yes. Yeah, that'd be it. This is the inside of the thrift store. It's a clean thrift store. We had a couple walked in, and the man says, we went into your thrift store, and the woman, my wife, was going around, and he said, what are you doing? And she said, well, it doesn't smell like a thrift store. We thought, good, we have a good reputation, This is when we do a food run. We pick up a van and go around to churches and pick up food. And then we have a car club that is called the Coloradans. They have been doing a car show, and the net proceeds go to the children's home. And they had it in town, but it cost for extra police, extra garbage people. It cost for permits to be on their parks. And they called me and they said, can we have a car show at the children's home? So we have about 230 cars that come out at the last end of July. And we have about 450 people from the community coming out on our and they ask all kinds of questions. I just take it, what a great evangelistic tool. Both the thrift store and the car show, getting people out, showing what the church does, and people want to help. They raised, I think this last year was about $14,000 through the car show. And they love what we do, and they've been doing it for nearly 40 years now. We have a clay shoot in July. Anybody like to come out and do a clay shoot? We have a gala that we have at the middle of August or October. Before COVID, we had 528 that came out that registered. After COVID, well, that dropped, we stopped, and now we're building it back up to about 360, I think was the last number. But people come up and say, we love coming to this event because you guys don't serve alcohol. They're Christian-based people come in and like the fact of what we do, and it's just a nice, clean event. And it's been a very successful event for us. I know it's 12 o'clock, so I'm kind of getting through this, new developments, transfers. We saw a lot of kids that graduate from high school. We needed to do something in regards to providing a longer term once they graduate, because the kids that stay in our program don't have a good home to go back to, and we wanted to find out how can we help them to become self-sufficient. So we bought this apartment complex. It's a little, you can tell it's an old motel, but it's been converted into small little apartments. We will help them to get a job and stay with them for 2 years to become where they get on their feet, or a vocational school, or go to college. So we have several in that right now in regards to helping them educationally, because they did not have a good home to go back to. I'll share one more story here in the sense of that. We looked at another house to try to start something like that. We pushed and pushed and pushed, trying to get it through, and it all fell through because of permit, we're not pulled on the house and whatever. 2 weeks later, we had a guy drive by this apartment complex and said, there was a little sign. He said, this apartment complex is for sale. And so we called, and it was an attorney handling it. And the attorney said, well, I don't know. The guy has 3 cash offers for it. And he says, I don't know why this guy hasn't taken it, because these are cash offers. And he said, I'll show it to you. So he showed it to us, and we walked around, and we found out it was a member of the church that owned it, that we worshiped with us. And he said, you guys are getting it. By the time we closed on it, he had 7 cash offers, one for $150,000 more than what he was asking. And he said, nope, you guys are getting it. And of course, he made a nice cash donation back. But it just shows in regards to sometimes we can sit there and plan, and I've told board members this, I said, we can plan and plan and plan, but boy, we need to be open and to what God will open up and the opportunities that he lays before us, because we were pushing hard on this other house, and this has just turned out so much better because the other apartments are rented, so that helps make this program self-sustainable because it goes back into a pot to help kids to go to college. And, we don't have to raise that money. It comes in. So there's just a lot of things that go on this part, some other pictures of it. Oh, this is another thing in regards, I know time is up, but we had a home aide come up and said, when they saw we built this other house, they said, we want to build you a house. Okay, Lord. So they built this house and moved into it. Lennar Homes was a national home builder that oversaw it. Its Home Aid is a nonprofit put together by the Home Builders Association. And they like to build bigger projects. And then they asked me to come out to one of their model homes, and they furnished it with all their model home furnishings. So I just say God has just been so good in so many ways. I'll go on. There we go. There we go. We do need a set of house parents. If anybody's interested in a set of house parents, we need a set of house parents. And what makes us unique is that we really provide a really good base and support system for our house parents to succeed and in the longevity of them. We have one set of house parents that's retiring next summer. Has been there for 20 years, so it's kind of like we're going to miss them, but anyway, I know time's up. It's 12 o'clock, but any final questions? I'll be back there if you want to ask questions or catch me. But thank you for allowing me to share what goes on at the Children's Home. God has been really good, and especially in the area where we are, where churches are few and far between. God has just provided. I mean, when Janice and I moved there 3 months after we moved there, they said, well, we're either looking at closing the home or making it work. And now you look at it today of how God has blessed it, it's just pretty amazing. Yeah. Was there another hand? Okay. Back there.
God works in mysterious ways.
Amen. That it's just,
That's why you go there.
it is. That's where you have to kind of open up your mind and realize, okay, God, I pray you direct me. Yeah. Yes.
The question that I have, so when these kids are, you give them the apartments, you help them to get a job, and that is for them to pay rent while they live there at the meantime? And so that supports that.
We have a system. For instance, we had Jaden that moved in, she was the first one. She moved in August, and we said 3 months from now, we're going to pay your rent. I mean, you don't have to pay rent. We'll get you utilities, internet, get you set up. We'll pay $400 a month for incidental foods. You can use our food room, and we'll take care of your car insurance. And she had a car donated. Well, then after 3 months, we sat down with her again. And we also said, you need to get enrolled into Front Range Community College. You need to get a part-time job, work 18, 20 hours a week. So she did that. So at the end of that 3 months, we said, okay, you got a job, you're working 20 hours a week, but you need to pay a third of that income toward back to the home for utilities, and that's what it costs. It's just, but then we supplement and everything else, but we want them to learn that life is 30, it's not like you get your 20 hours of income, you could go spend it however you want. No, a third of that goes for housing and utilities. So it's approaching it from that standpoint to teach them the reality of life.
Structured reality of life.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me come and speak. Appreciate it.